the hospital administration and the national hospitalist company that I worked for made this agreement that the shifts would be 24 hours and they would be consecutive 24-hour shifts. And there were only 3 of us doing this job for 365 days a year, 7 on, 7 off, so 7 24s. Well, you know, that works if you're just taking call at night, but really what it became was you're up in the ER at night and you would see the poor exhausted ER doc who would come on at 7 a.m. and get off at 7 p.m. while the next guy came in. You're exhausted too, and you're like, they're going home, and the nurses are going home, and you're like, okay, I can do another night, and then you're staying through, and maybe you get done at 1 a.m., and you're like, should I eat, should I shower, or should I sleep? Well, you know, if I shower, then they might call me again from the, you know, so everything just gets let go, and you try to go to sleep, and then you get called back again, and then you see that ER doc and nurses are going off shift, and the new army of people would come in, and you're still there. And then the same thing that night. And it just got worse and worse. It got busier, busier. And the way that they do that is they hire J1 visas, and they're locked into 3 years. So I was one of the very few people that was not a J1 visa at this job, and they're locked in. They can't complain because they'll lose their visa. And so I tried to speak up eventually, and I waited a while to do that because I wanted to make a relationship first. And I stayed there for almost 2 years, and I finally brought it up and tried to have some meetings and tried to be politically correct and tried to document the conditions. I slept in the hospital. I showered in a broom closet there's like a little closet in the CCU. The cafeteria closed at 1 o'clock. So, you know, usually we miss breakfast because you're on the wards at 7 and breakfast is at 7. And then you'd often miss lunch because it's really hard to get off at 12 to go get something to eat. And the cafeteria was closed because it's a small hospital. So you had no access to food. And then you'd think, well, I'm going to get out to go get a Whataburger or whatever, which I hate eating. And then you wouldn't get out. And then, you know, and then you'd say, well, could we have access to food? And they're like, well, you outsiders, you come in, you tell us how, and it's like, it was insane. We had case management meetings in the morning with the case management team. And on a transition day, if I was going off my shifts and a new doctor was coming on the shifts, we would all meet together. And the case managers were all fresh because they worked an 8-hour shift. They worked hard, but if they worked over 8 hours, they were on overtime. So we're doing these 24s and they're coming in fresh. And then their boss would say, oh, doctor, she's so irritable. Why is she so irritable? And thinking, so anyway, I'm sitting there one day, I'm just exhausted going off a 3 or 4 day stretch. And my new boss, they asked, there were only 3 of us and everybody kept leaving. The program director left. So they asked each one of us if we wanted to be program director. And we, of course, anybody with smarts said, no way. So who gets to be program director? It's the newest guy who's like 28 and J1 visa, nice enough guy. So he comes on and he tries to manage this program in addition to being a new family medicine grad at this hospital where we were the ICU doctor, no cardiologist, no pulmonologist, sick patients. So he's managing all this. He comes onto the shift and we're having this meeting. Or maybe he was going off the shift. I can't remember. He starts seizing, literally seizing, just having a seizure. And they allowed him to work that day.
In the ICU?
In the ICU, and we are unsupervised in the ICU. It is us and only us. In fact, as an internist, I even got called into OB there because it's like there's nobody to do critical care for hemorrhages. It's like so it was exciting, but you have got to be on your game. And I tell you what, when you've worked 36 hours, you're not on top of your game, and there is nobody else overlooking those cases. And of course, the patients don't know that you've worked that long. I mean, would they fly in a plane if the pilot had been flying for 36 hours and seizing?